No, as Johannes was singing that song, and as I was preparing for this week, the conclusion of a 4-part series, I recognized that it's how great our understanding of God. How great is our understanding of God? And it's how great that understanding communicates with a mind that the demonstration in our life appears. You see, I realize that the mind that succeeds is always the one that digs deeper. The mind that succeeds is always the one that looks beyond the first impression. The mind that succeeds is always the one that is filled with faith. But what is faith except that which looks for what is hidden beyond what is apparent? I was thinking about that because if it was apparent, it would require no faith, right? Because we could see it, feel it, touch it, prove it, know it, take a picture of it, send it to somebody through our phone. There's no faith involved in that. When we have faith, what we do is we enter into a spirit of potential. When we have faith, our mind no longer reacts to challenges that show up. What we do is we work through a hidden potential. And when we have faith, we recognize this hidden potential is always available in every present situation. You see, I hope after the past 3 weeks and through today, you realize that no one of us can ever fail. No one of us can ever fail to accomplish great things when we awaken all that is within us right now. You know, Dr. King said darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Only light can drive out darkness. That's why at night when the sun rises, it is the light. The darkness is nothing of itself. Once the light comes, the light takes precedence, if you will. There's no way to exclude the light. If the darkness represents a challenging situation that we go through, then the light is God's understanding in us. The light is how great is our God, the way we understand God. And so today I want everyone to leave to know how great is an intelligent understanding of God. Not a God that is out there somewhere, every once in a while drops a little crumbs into our life, but a God that moves through everything we're going through today. Yeah, I got a letter somewhere. I shouldn't really share this, but I'm going to be a bad minister here. Dear Pastor, and I'll tell you, it's from the concerned Christians across America. And it said, "Oh, fellow carer of men's souls, what will become of our nation? Powerless to prevent the gradual euthanasia of America's founding values, while a spellbound electorate prepares to hand the reins of government to those who wear Christianity only as a uniform. Our only resource now is the power of prayer to the God who is above all. Pastor, we beg you to pray alone and with your congregation that God will awaken our great nation to install right-thinking men and women in Washington seats of power. Sincerely, the concerned Christians across America." And so what I do, because they sent it to Reverend Frank Phillip, is I pray that God will install right-thinking men and women in Washington to install the values of a man who taught we don't judge, we love our enemies, to a man who taught we forgive, we pray for others, we share, we help those that are less fortunate, to a man who taught there is only one race of people, not two. So thank you for that letter, concerned Christians. And I have answered your call, and with my church, I have prayed. May our prayers be answered. And so that brings me to today's talk. You know, we think about the kingdom of heaven. Obviously, if we're experiencing a crisis, reframing it at some level means we leave the state of awareness we are right now, and we move to something that, you know, I would metaphorically call the kingdom of heaven, whatever that is to you. A higher idea, more peace, security, no fear, harmony, oneness, light, love, you know, however that looks. And so I was trying to find some scriptures today that would really close the month-long theme. So if you go to Matthew, the 13th verse, Jesus talked in one sentence about the kingdom of heaven. On the 44th verse, the 13th chapter, I'm sorry. And he says, the kingdom of heaven is like a treasure hidden in a field, which someone found and hid. And then in his joy, he goes and sells all that he has and he buys the field. So I want to, interpret that today. If God's plan is like a treasure hidden in a field, first, let's notice one important fact. The field is not of primary importance. Rather, it is the treasure that is hidden therein. The field, in fact, is purely incidental to the hidden idea that God has, that intelligence has put upon this man's heart. And so the field absolutely represents our life. And so life is complete. It has everything. It's our world. It's our ups. It's our downs. It's the good days. It's the bad days and everything in the middle. But in the field, in life, at every moment, there's a hidden treasure. And what makes it a treasure is it's not initially apparent. It doesn't jump out and say, here I am. And so this man represents a way of reframing that first reaction, that oh my God, if you will. This man recognizes the treasure is part of the field, and to attain the highest idea in the mind of God, I am required to rethink my panic. See, he stumbled upon the treasure. He wasn't looking for it. He found it by chance. He was taken by surprise by the field. And so the question I have after 4 talks, after 4 Sundays, the question I have is, are you willing to embrace the highest thoughts you can conceive to possess the treasure buried in the field? Okay, now Johannes is ready and Sheila, I heard. But are you ready to embrace those prayers in your mind as if they're already done? Are you willing to let go, to sell, if you will, every lesser idea so that you may own the whole field? You know, one of the things I realize is the main aim is to obtain the treasure, but we have to go through the field to get it. Not only do we have to go through the field, we have to buy it, own it. We call that acceptance. We can go through life seeing only the surface and not any of the ideas that exist deep below the surface. But these teachings that we share, these teachings from this book, they are meant to go under the surface. They are meant to recognize, what does this mean in my life? What does it mean when a crisis shows up? Am I looking at the crisis as an opportunity? Am I looking to discover truth quite unexpectedly, just as the man digging in the field, seemingly by chance, unearthed this hidden treasure? Or am I expecting the worst to happen? Because if we're honest with ourselves and we expect the worst to happen, how many of us would actually write out the worst case scenario, put it on a prayer request, and drop it in that box?